Hey, what's up, guys? It's Foster from Inglês no Crew. Today we have a special guest, Seth Kugel, the journalist, traveler, YouTuber, author, among other things. Welcome, Seth. How are you doing?
I'm doing great. Did you just say Inglês new and crew with a carioca accent?
Yeah, I can't shake it. Inglês no Crew.
You know, I once had I learned Portuguese with a carioca accent from teachers, and then I had a girlfriend who forced me to stop. She's like, "No way, no way. You're American. There's no excuse for that."
It's interesting. My first Portuguese teacher was actually from Minas Gerais. So I started with kind of a neutral caipira-ish accent. And then Alexia, my girlfriend, really changed me into a full-blown carioca thing, like, yeah, yeah,
Yeah.
beleza. So, Seth, you do a lot of things. You have the YouTube channel, Amigo Gringo. You have a book coming out. Can you just give us a little background about who you are, what you do?
Sure. Well, I did a bunch of things, and then I was a teacher and blah blah blah. At age 28, I decided to become a writer, and it actually worked out quite well. I started writing for the New York Times, and then later I became a travel writer for the New York Times, which is even better. But the best move I've made is to start a YouTube channel in Portuguese for Brazilians,
Wow.
Amigo Gringo, as you mentioned. And that's been about 3.5 years and like 400 videos. And it's been the most fun thing I've ever done. So that's kind of, it's certainly not the project that makes me the most money, but it is the one that's the most fun. I guess you could say I'm a travel writer. I have a YouTube channel in Portuguese. I now also have a YouTube channel in English with Portuguese subtitles called Globally Curious. That's to go along with my book,
Yeah.
which is coming at the end of October in English. Good practice for anyone who wants to read it. Called Rediscovering Travel: A Guide for the Globally Curious. Yeah, I'm pretty busy. I'm pretty busy.
Yeah. Yeah. I just saw your new YouTube channel and it's excellent. I highly recommend it to everyone.
We just posted a video about an American family that moved to Salvador to open a trampoline park.
Like one of the, how do we call those do we say trampoline park in English?
Well, I don't know. That's what they call it. It's like a
Like an
kids.
indoor jump around fun house?
Yeah, it's like but it really is just like a whole bunch of trampolines. That's all it is. And I mean, there's not too many families that move to Brazil and open a trampoline park. But believe it or not, there's two. They actually copied their friends who did it.
Another American
So
family that did it first?
yeah, yeah,
Ai,
in
meu Deus.
Salvador, I mean, in Sao Paulo and Rio, I think.
That's awesome. Yeah, that proves you can do anything these days.
It really does. Really does.
Yeah. Yeah, Seth, I've been a fan of Amigo Gringo for a long time, and you guys produce a lot of videos. Like, s-
Yeah.
how do you do that? So first, what is the main goal of Amigo Gringo? Like, who are you producing these videos for, and how do you do it?
The main goal, the selfish goal, is to talk about all the things I talk about anyway with my friends, both Americans who live in Brazil or love Brazil, and Brazilians who live in Brazil and maybe don't love Brazil, about the differences between the United States
Yeah.
and Brazil.
Di-
And it started out as kind of a tourist thing. So I'm a travel writer. It was sort of about like how Brazilians should experience New York and how to sort of blend in
mhm.
with New Yorkers. So we both talk about like everything from just like whether to bring gifts when you stay at people's houses, how to flirt with American men and women, safety issues, punctuality, which is always a big and very complicated issue, by the way. It's not just like Brazilians are always late
Yeah.
and New Yorkers are always on time. It's much more complex than that.
Yeah, it's just a totally different vibe on totally different wavelengths. Yeah.
And then we also added English pretty close to the beginning. We started adding English lessons in most videos, and people love those. So we have a whole series of videos just on English. There's a playlist. I think it's called like Aprendendo Inglês com Amigo Gringo or something like that.
Mhm.
And so, and also Brazilians stopped visiting New York so much because of the the weak currency, the real
Yeah, yeah.
being so weak. So we also started doing some more stuff in Brazil. We have videos from at least 8 or 9 different cities in Brazil. And the way I did a lot of videos is I had a great team for the first 2 or 3 years, and then they kind of moved away. Every single one of them moved away, actually, to another place. And so now I do it mostly myself now. I just got a new guy, Thiago, helping me. He's from Rio.
Nice.
Um, so for the last year or two, it's been very much work to try to figure out how to do these on my own. But yeah, but there's a lot of stuff on there. I think you could probably watch for like 40 hours now or 50 hours if you wanted to.
Yeah, there's a
Uh,
lot of material. And I don't think most people recognize how much work goes into producing like even a relatively short video. It's a lot of work.
yeah, it's a lot of work. I mean, it's funny. Like there are some people, I guess, who can just get on and talk and think that's a video. But for me, it all needs to be planned out. Not the exact words.
So, Seth, you're kind of a part of this boom or explosion of YouTubers kind of catering specifically towards Brazilians.
Part of the boom or the
I
pioneer?
would,
I think that's the question.
let me rephrase the question. You have spearheaded a new movement of of this boom of people just kind of teaching Brazilians random things, sometimes about culture, sometimes about language. Why do you
Yeah,
think this has happened? Like I know Brazilians are super digitally savvy, but
yeah.
they love watching Americans speak Portuguese on YouTube.
Well, I think there's a number of reasons. It is true that if you're most Brazilians have never heard a foreigner speak Portuguese.
Yeah.
It's not like being Mexican, and just pretty much every American can at least count to 10 in Spanish. Or if you're French, there's just the awful tourists trying to say things
Hmm.
in French when they visit Paris. But it's just very few people learn Portuguese, and not it's not what the Brazilians mostly think. It's not because it's just like this absolutely impossible language to learn. It's really not that hard.
Everyone says Portuguese is the most difficult language in the world. I'm like, it was pretty easy.
I mean, I understand if you tell me it's harder to pronounce than Spanish. It definitely is,
Yeah.
but it's not harder to learn than Mandarin. You know,
No.
it's just not possible. But anyway, so it's fun for Brazilians to hear Americans speak. I mean, we grew up in the United States where we hear everyone speaking English in all kinds of accents, and it's fun, right?
Yeah.
We imitate Italians in like a caricaturish way. We imitate the French. It's just part of our lives, and Brazilians don't really have that. So to hear foreigners speak Portuguese is really fun. I think it's easier for you or for me to forget that because our friends in Brazil are maybe the kinds of people that do meet foreigners. But most people don't. And it's still every time I get into a taxi or Uber or bus or whatever, people always want to hear about how I learned Portuguese. And it's not just that. Brazilians are also very interested, for better or for worse, about what other countries think of them.
Yeah.
You know,
Vira-lata.
this is the
Yeah.
famous complexo vira-lata. So, like I said, for better or for worse, it's not necessarily good, but it's good for us. So,
Yeah, you are on point when you said that it's just fun for Brazilians. And I think I've forgotten that because I'm in the US right now. I haven't been to Brazil in almost a year, maybe. But I forget. Yeah, every time you get in a taxi, you order food, people are like, huh, where are you from? Oh, the US. What are you doing speaking Portuguese? Like, what are you doing here? And it's just,
how did that ever happen?
yeah, it's just
Uh,
befuddling to them.
by the way, I think you should, if you don't already, use my comeback when someone says, "Wow, você fala muito bem." I always say, "Ah, você também." Like, and they're always like little befuddled, like, "What? But I do speak, but I'm from here." Pretty good move. I mean, I do it so often that when I'm with somebody I know, they can't stand it.
I normally just use the self-deprecating, like, "Não, cara, meu português é uma merda," and just kinda
Yeah,
fishing for compliments a little bit.
that's good. That's good. But oh, I was going to say also that Brazil is also a huge market. If people are trying to make, at least not lose money on YouTube, you can talk about Brazil and you're reaching, I think it's YouTube's second biggest market.
Yeah.
And you can do stuff in Spanish if you want, but you're going to have to do it in very general terms because if you do it just for Mexico or just for Argentina, that's not so great. And also, it's fun. People love Brazil. Americans tend to love Brazil. It's a hard place to live, but Americans who sort of just visit or spend a month there or something tend to really love it. And so it's. I should add one more thing. The Brazilians are really fun to interact with on YouTube. I get comments every video from all over Brazil, all over, and they're often hilarious. Sometimes they're very smart comments. There's criticisms quite a bit.
Mhm.
Weirdly, I don't really get the haters really anymore. The trolls. I think that I drove them away at the beginning by actually answering all the comments. When they see you're answering, they don't. So I have a really nice audience. Like I have a really nice community out there,
That's awesome.
and I get to hear from people. Like if I love to mention sort of faraway places that don't get many tourists. So if I mention Rondônia or Roraima, or even a specific town in Rondônia, there's always somebody that writes in and is like, "I live there. That's where I am." So I have a wide-ranging audience. I also have politically wide-ranging audience. There's the Bolsonaro folks show up whenever I mention anything sounding like a New York liberal,
Yep.
or anything vaguely negative about President Trump,
Yep.
and they come right in, and they're there, and they're all over the political spectrum, really. So that's really fun as well. Um, I think I have a broader communications with a broader range of Brazilians than most foreigners do.
Yeah, and I think that's kind of an intrinsic thing of Brazil that it's a super diverse place that manifests itself in a lot of different ways.
I was a reporter in Brazil, like a regular reporter, which was like 8 years ago.
Mhm.
Then you get to visit all kinds of places, right? You get to go to the interior, and you get to go to favela, and you get to go interview rich people, and you go to the Amazon, and you go
Yep.
to the south. But that's very unusual. Most gringos who live in Brazil live in Rio or Sao Paulo, and they hang out with their friends and who are of a certain social class.
Mhm.
And so YouTube is really special in that way. I mean, there's a lot of things I don't like about YouTube. We could get into that.
Of
But in
course.
terms of bringing people from all over the place into one community to debate or talk or interact, it's really pretty great. And the questions people send in are, amazingly varied. They can be very sophisticated questions, but they can also about sort of American culture and nationalism and gun control
Mhm.
and all sorts of stuff. And then they can be stuff like, do the trees in Central Park really turn orange in the fall?
Yeah.
And you know, that's a question probably from someone who has never really maybe they're younger and they've never traveled or whatever, and it's just amazing. Like trees don't turn orange in Brazil, and maybe you saw an image of it. You're like, that can't be real. They must paint
That's a
them.
weird Photoshop thing. Yeah, that's
Yeah,
fascinating.
yeah. It makes you really think. It's the best. It's the best part of the whole thing.